The contract was guaranteed on Monday night. $2.3 million, fully guaranteed. The Los Angeles Lakers made the decision quietly, without announcement, before the deadline passed. Bronny James was locked in, secure. His future in purple and gold was confirmed. And then, the very next morning, his father told the Lakers he was leaving. The timing was not lost on anyone. The night the son's future was guaranteed, the father decided his own future was somewhere else. And in that 12-hour window between those two decisions, a story that had been building for 2 full years arrived at the moment everyone had been quietly dreading, but nobody wanted to say out loud. What happens to Bronny James when LeBron is no longer in the building? Because that question is no longer hypothetical. It is not a future concern to be addressed down the road. It is happening right now, in real time, during an NBA offseason that has turned Bronny James into the most discussed non-star player in the league, not because of what he has done on the court, but because of what his father's absence might reveal about why he was ever there in the first place. And the people saying the most uncomfortable things about it are not strangers. They are people from inside the sport itself. Let's go back to where this story actually begins. Not June 30th, 2026, when Shams Charania reported the news the NBA had been waiting for. Not the moment Rich Paul, LeBron's agent and the CEO of Clutch Sports, told ESPN that LeBron James will continue his NBA career and has informed the Los Angeles Lakers that the franchise can move on without him. Not even the moment Jeannie Buss released her warm and gracious farewell statement, calling LeBron one of the greatest athletes in history. This story begins in June 2024, when the NBA draft took place and the Los Angeles Lakers used a second-round pick, the 55th selection overall, on a 19-year-old kid named LeBron James Jr. Bronny James, the son of the greatest player of his generation. A player who, in his final college season at USC, suffered a cardiac arrest during a practice that stopped his basketball development for months and raised genuine questions about whether he would ever play at any level again. A player who, when he was drafted, was not regarded by most evaluators as a second-round talent on his own merits. A player whose presence in that draft class and on that specific roster was understood by virtually everyone in the league as something more than a basketball decision. It was a legacy decision, a family decision. A decision that LeBron James had telegraphed years earlier when he said publicly, directly, more than once, that the one goal he had left in basketball, the one thing that the rings and the MVPs and the all-time scoring record had not yet given him, was to share an NBA court with his son. The Lakers gave him that. And when it happened in October 2024, when LeBron and Bronny took the floor together as teammates and became the first father and son to play on the same NBA team in the history of the league, it was a genuinely beautiful moment. Whatever your feelings about the politics of how it happened, whatever your view on whether Bronny deserved the opportunity on pure basketball merit, the image of LeBron James standing on an NBA floor next to the son he had coached from childhood, the son he had chartered private planes to watch play in high school, the Fivo of Pura de Pala, son who had scared his entire family with a cardiac arrest and come back anyway. That image was real, and the emotion in it was real. LeBron said it himself in November 2025 during a press conference, when asked about watching Bronny develop. He said it had been great to see and to watch, that he was still young, that there was still so much road ahead of him. And then, in January 2026, something shifted in LeBron's public language. A reporter asked him about the future, about retirement, about when the end might come. And he said, slowly and carefully, that the thought creeps into his mind more at 41 years old, that he has not made a decision, but that it very well could be his last season. That was the first time LeBron said out loud what the basketball world had already suspected, that this era was ending, that whatever came next was going to be shaped by a different set of priorities than the ones that had driven the previous 23 years. And in that moment, the question of Bronny's future began to feel different. Because if LeBron was thinking about retiring, if the end was approaching not in some abstract future sense, but in the real, specific, this season might be it sense, then the entire architecture around Bronny's NBA career was about to change. The protective presence that had made his inclusion on the roster a near certainty, the gravitational pull that had ensured he would be in the rotation and on the bench and on the court in playoff moments, the reason the Lakers had drafted him and kept him and developed him, all of that was contingent on his father being in the building. And now his father is leaving the building. June 30th, 2026. Shams Charania reports the news. Rich Paul confirms it. LeBron James has informed the Los Angeles Lakers that the franchise can move on without him because he will play elsewhere. After 8 seasons, after the 2020 championship in the bubble, after the records and the milestones and the historic moments and the 2 seasons as teammates with his own son, the Lakers' era of LeBron James is over. He broke his own silence on X, 2 sentences that said everything and nothing at the same time. He wrote, "No, thank you." Truly an honor to wear the purple and gold while trying to continue the greatness and legacies that came before me. Hope the first made a few proud during my stint. That was it. No announcement of a next destination. No hint at what comes next. No statement about Bronnys' future or their future together. Just gratitude. Just closure. And then the silence of a man who has decided where he is going, but is not yet ready to tell the world. The basketball world immediately shifted its attention to two questions. Where is LeBron going? And what happens to Bronny? The first question has produced a free agent sweepstakes unlike anything the league has seen since LeBron's original decision in 2010. The Philadelphia 76ers traded for Jaylen Brown and emerged as a genuine contender for his services. Rich Paul went on a podcast and said that everything changed in Philadelphia. That when you have Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Jaylen Brown, and Joel Embiid, you have LeBron's attention. The Cleveland Cavaliers have been discussed as the romantic homecoming. His third stint in Cleveland, his hometown, the place where he delivered the most miraculous championship in NBA history in 2016. The Golden State Warriors are building a super team pitch around reuniting LeBron with Anthony Davis and Stephen Curry under Steve Kerr. The Minnesota Timberwolves, the Dallas Mavericks, the Boston Celtics. The list of teams that have emerged as potential destinations reads like a ballot for the most compelling NBA story of the decade. And in the middle of all of it, sitting with a fully guaranteed $2.3 million contract and no father to shield him from the scrutiny, is Bronny James. Now let's talk about what Bronny has actually done in 2 NBA seasons, because the conversation around him has been so loaded with the weight of who his father is that the actual basketball has sometimes gotten lost. In his 2 seasons with the Lakers, Bronny has averaged 2.7 points and 1.1 assists per game. He has played the vast majority of his professional career split between the NBA roster and the G League's South Bay Lakers affiliate. He played 42 games in his second season, started 1, and averaged 2.9 points, 1.2 assists, and 0.5 rebounds in 8.9 minutes per game, with a 40.9% field goal percentage. Those are not the numbers of an NBA rotation player, not yet. They are the numbers of a developmental prospect who is learning the professional game in real time, who has shown genuine defensive effort and competitive spirit, and 3-and-D potential, but who has not yet demonstrated the ability to independently impact a game at the NBA level in a meaningful way. His most notable moment of the entire 2-year run came in Game 4 of the 2026 first-round playoff series against the Houston Rockets. 15 minutes, 5 points, 4 assists, sharing the floor with his father in a playoff game. They combined to score 10 straight points in the second quarter, 5 for LeBron, 5 for Bronny, and the moment was everything the fairy tale had promised. But a fairy tale and a roster spot are 2 different things. And the people who have watched professional basketball their entire careers are making that distinction out loud now that LeBron is gone. Rob Parker went on Fox Sports Radio's The Odd Couple and delivered the bluntest verdict in the conversation so far. He said Bronny James should retire, that he himself would retire if he were in Bronny's position. His reasoning was surgical and uncomfortable and resonated with a significant portion of the basketball public, precisely because it articulated something that many people had been thinking but not saying. Parker said the jig is up, that the reason Bronny was there is no longer there, that the Lakers should give him the money to go away, that there is no path forward for Bronny James as an independent NBA player who earns his spot on his own merits. Those words were brutal, and they were immediately pushed back on by people who argued that Bronny is 21 years old, has 2 years of professional development already invested, has shown genuine improvement, and deserves the opportunity to prove himself without his father's shadow defining him in either direction. But here is the thing that both sides of that debate are circling around without quite landing on. Bronny James's entire NBA trajectory has been shaped by a single overriding factor that had nothing to do with the quality of his basketball and everything to do with his last name and his father's presence on the roster. That is not an insult, that is not a scandal. That is simply the truth of how the situation was constructed from the moment the Lakers made that 55th pick in June 2024. The question was never whether Bronny deserved to be drafted by the Lakers. The question was always, what happens when the reason he was there is no longer there? That question now has an answer, and the answer is complicated, because Bronny's $2.3 million contract is fully guaranteed. The Lakers made that decision Monday night, when they chose not to waive him by the contractual deadline. According to ESPN's Dave McMenamin, the Lakers could ultimately trade Bronny to whatever team LeBron signs with, so that the father-son partnership can continue under a new jersey. The possibility exists, per McMenamin, that LeBron's departure from the Lakers does not necessarily mean the end of them being teammates. It could simply mean a change of uniform. The Cleveland Cavaliers have reportedly considered pursuing Bronny as part of a package to make the homecoming story more appealing to LeBron. The narrative writes itself. LeBron returning to Cleveland for his final season, bringing his son with him, closing the circle on a career that began on an Ohio basketball court 3 decades ago. Rich Paul's comments about Philadelphia create a different scenario. The 76ers have Maxey, Embiid, Jaylen Brown, and VJ Edgecombe. They are built around a backcourt and frontcourt that does not obviously need a developmental guard, averaging 2.9 points per game. A Bronny trade to Philadelphia would be a harder sell basketball-wise, even if the family continuity makes emotional sense. And there is a third bizarre scenario, one that nobody is talking about much, but that may ultimately be the most honest one. Bronny stays with the Lakers. He develops under coach J.J. Redick alongside Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. He becomes part of a young core that has its own identity, separate from the LeBron era. He plays in a system designed by a coach who has spent considerable time working with him specifically, and he either proves, over the next 2 seasons, that he can carve out a legitimate NBA role on his own terms, or he does not. That scenario is the one in which Bronny James either becomes his own story or disappears from the league quietly. Because here is the reality that the guaranteed contract cannot change. The NBA is not a developmental league with unlimited patience for projects. It is a results-driven environment where roster spots have real financial value and teams make decisions based on contribution and potential. Bronny's contract is guaranteed, but the team option for 2027 to 28 is one thou, not guaranteed. The Lakers can exercise it or let it expire based entirely on what they see between October 2026 and April 2027. That is Bronny's audition, 1 season, without his father in the building. Without the protective gravitational pull that has shaped every professional decision made around him since the night of the 2024 draft. LeBron has spoken at length about how meaningful it has been to play alongside his son. Those are not manufactured sentiments. The emotion was visible every time they shared the court. In practice, in regular season games, and most memorably, in that April playoff game against the Rockets, when they combined for 10 straight points, and the entire building seemed to feel the weight of what they were watching. But LeBron has also spent 41 years learning something that his son is now going to have to learn on his own. That basketball is a meritocracy that eventually strips away every advantage except the ones you earn yourself. That the greatest protection you can have in this sport is not a famous name or a famous parent. It is the ability to make a team better when the game is on the line and the margin is thin. Bronny James has never had to demonstrate that without LeBron in the building. Now he will. And the entire NBA world, the coaches, the executives, the analysts, the fans, the people who loved the father-son story, and the people who resented it, is going to be watching to find out what Bronny James actually is when the story stops being about his father. Rob Parker thinks the answer is nothing, that the jig is up, that the honest move is to walk away with the guaranteed money and the memory of the playoff games and the shared moments, and call it a career that served its real purpose, which was not basketball. J.J. Redick, who has spent 2 years coaching both of them, has not offered a public verdict. He is committed to working with the players he has. The roster around Bronny will be different. The purpose of his presence will be different. The conversations in the locker room will be different. Everything will be different. LeBron James posted 2 sentences on X and then went quiet. He has not announced his next team. He has not spoken about Bronny's future publicly. He has not told the basketball world what the plan is for the father-son story that captured its imagination for 2 seasons. That silence is deafening in its own way, because LeBron James, a man who has controlled every major career narrative since he was 17 years old, has chosen not to address the one question everyone is asking. Not where he is going, where Bronny is going, and what that silence means, whether it reflects a painful private conversation that has not yet been resolved, or a plan that is already in motion and simply has not been announced, or a father who genuinely does not know how to separate what is best for his son's basketball career from what he wants for his own final chapter. Nobody outside that family knows. What the basketball world does know is this. Bronny James is 21 years old. He has a guaranteed NBA contract. He has 2 years of professional development. He has a father who is still playing at a level that commands the attention of every major franchise in the league. And he has, for the first time in his professional life, the thing that every great player eventually needs and fears in equal measure, the chance to prove it alone. No protective, gravitational pull. No rotation decisions, shaped by the presence of his father down the other end of the bench. No fairy tale to sustain the narrative when the basketball gets hard and the margin is thin and the evaluation is cold and honest. Just Bronny. Just the work. Just the games. LeBron broke his silence on leaving the Lakers with 2 sentences of gratitude and no mention of what comes next. The silence on Bronny's future is the loudest part of this entire story. And the NBA is waiting to find out what it means. Because the answer to that question will define not just Bronny James the basketball player. It will define something larger. Something the sport has been quietly debating since the night of the 2024 draft, when the commissioner called his name and the arena erupted, and half the basketball world celebrated, and the other half shifted uncomfortably in their seats. It will define whether the NBA has a nepotism problem. That word has been avoided carefully in mainstream coverage of this story. Nepotism is a word people reach for and then pull back from because it carries weight that feels unfair to assign to a 21-year-old kid who did not design the system he benefited from. Bronny James did not draft himself. He did not negotiate the terms of his own opportunity. He did not ask to be the son of the greatest player of his generation or to inherit the scrutiny that comes with it. But the question is legitimate, and the basketball world knows it. If Bronny James had a different last name, if he had been LeBron Williamson or LeBron Carter or LeBron anybody else, would the 55th pick in the 2024 draft have been spent on him? Would the roster spot have been held? Would the G League trips have been accompanied by a guaranteed return to the main roster? Would the playoff minutes have materialized? The honest answer, from virtually every evaluator who has assessed his talent independently of his name, is no. Probably not at this stage of his development. Possibly later, if the trajectory continues upward, but not yet, and not like this. And that is not a condemnation of Bronny James. It is simply an acknowledgement that the NBA has never seen a situation quite like this before. A player whose presence on a roster was negotiated through the leverage of his father's superstar status, and that the league is now going to find out, in real time, and with the whole world watching, what that player actually is when that leverage disappears. LeBron's legacy is secure. That much is settled. The all-time scoring record, 4 championships with 4 different franchises, 23 seasons, the first player in league history to have a son as a teammate. None of that changes, regardless of where he signs next or how his final season unfolds. But Bronny's legacy is entirely unwritten, and the next 12 months will do more to determine what that legacy looks like than anything that has happened in the previous 2 years, combined. Rob Parker said give him the money to go away. JJ Redick said nothing publicly but stayed in the building with him every day. Rich Paul is negotiating LeBron's future while Bronny sits in limbo. And Bronny himself, 21 years old, fully guaranteed, suddenly without the one person whose presence made every hard conversation easier, has said nothing at all. The silence from both father and son on this specific question is the most telling thing about where this story actually is. LeBron breaks his silence on leaving the Lakers with 2 sentences and moves on to the next chapter. Bronny's chapter is just beginning, and nobody, not the Lakers, not the analysts, not the fans, not Rob Parker, not Rich Paul, not even LeBron himself, knows yet how it ends.